Welcome to Spotlight, a podcast of the Topeka Community Foundation. During Make a Will Month, it is important for families to think about their future and make sure that they have the documents in place that they need to ensure that their assets live far beyond their lifetime. The Topeka Community Foundation works with estate planning attorneys and financial advisors to assist them with their clients who are interested in a charitable plan as part of their estate plan. We're proud today to feature Hurst Coffman, a local estate planning attorney who has worked with the Community Foundation in creating funds that represent his clients' charitable wishes. Hurst, you have been a longtime friend of the foundation from the very beginning. In 1983, when the foundation began, Karen Welch was the executive director then. You've helped establish the Council Grove Community Foundation and the Overbrook Community Foundation. Talk about those early years and what it was like at the Community Foundation and really why the community was ready for a community foundation.
Well, Marcia, I think that other communities had some vital community foundations, especially Kansas City.
Right.
And I think that some of the leaders in the community felt like we should have a community foundation because there are many people in a community who really want to leave some funds for the benefit of the community and not specifically to this organization or that organization, but for the community in general. And I remember Karen must have worked out of a closet or something. There wasn't hardly any office or staff or anything. But she and John Salisbury,
right.
And I think Alicia, his wife, was very instrumental, and Sandy Vogel, as I remember, was instrumental. Several of those people were instrumental. I knew them from my church community, and so I think they thought, well, when they needed a lawyer to go talk to people, they'd call on me, and I was glad to do it. I remember going to Council Grove and meeting with the folks out there. I remember also working with Karen on some early scholarship funds. And the idea that we had to come up with a memorandum, defining the criteria, and you had to be within certain guidelines were allowed and some were not allowed to have as criteria. And all of that was a learning process, I think, for a lot of us in the professional community, as well as donors, because I don't know before that where people really left money for scholarships. I know they left them in trust departments and that sort of thing. But the continuity of a community foundation, presumably going forever, appealed to a lot of people.
As you've talked to your clients about giving, what has been, when I think about you, I think people can be interesting or they can be interested. And I feel like you've always shown yourself to be very interested in people. And so as you've listened to them, you've directed them when you've heard a charitable intent to the Community Foundation.
Right.
How has that kind of solution, one-stop shop in working with us, helped you help them?
Well, it's interesting to me through all these years how many people really didn't know yet about the Community Foundation. I mean, even into the 2000s.
Right.
And I've had clients who wanted to leave a fund, maybe a family fund that was in the name of their family, and then their children would continue to designate the beneficiaries and the grant recipients and so forth. And I said, well, that sounds like a family designated fund at the Community Foundation. And they had never heard of that. And so I think that was one of the ways that the Community Foundation really helped a lot of my clients in their planned giving. Now, of course, many people already knew that, for example, Civic Theater Endowment or the Grace Cathedral Endowment or the Symphony Endowment already existed. And so they could just simply designate funds to those because they were already set up.
Right.
But to create their own fund, and I watched families kind of work this out over what they really wanted to do with the funds into the future.
It's a big, we spend so many time, families spend all this time rushing off to softball games, concerts. They're just busy. We don't really sit down and take the time to do something that's going to have a huge impact and last beyond all of us. That's the importance of this work.
Well, and kind of a change in focus in the younger generations on what they really want to benefit. It's not necessarily just church and but the broader community. And so that's when the Community Foundation designated funds really, that family donor advised funds really make a difference.
Recently, we celebrated the anniversary of a fund that you were instrumental in bringing to the Community Foundation. Tell us the story about the You Are Special Fund and how that came to be.
Well, to start with, I have practiced law for 50 years and did a lot of planning for people. And in all those 50 years, there are a handful of clients that you always remember.
Yeah.
And partly because of you did a lot of work with them, but partly because of their unique personalities and their unique planning. Mm-hmm. And this client was a widow. I never met her husband. I helped her after her husband died. And she had a fair amount of resources and no family at all, no known relatives that I ever heard of. And so she loved dogs and kids. And she had a dog herself, but she never had any kids herself. And so she left her estate to different places. Of course, Helping Hands got a little share. But her fund at the Community Foundation was to be anonymous. She didn't want her name on it because she didn't want people to know that she'd left that amount, frankly. Mm-hmm. So after she passed away, I thought, Marcia and we talked about it, and I said, that's kind of, anonymous is kind of nondescript, you know. So we named it the URSPCL Fund. That was her license plate. And URSPCL spells You Are Special.
Right, right.
And the terms of her fund are very simple. It says the income is to be distributed from time to time in the Topeka community for things that people really need, especially children. And we've had more fun trying to find things. I remember... there's been counseling programs at the after-school programs. We've helped Capper Foundation with things that they needed. I remember the time that we dispersed funds to buy the children's mattresses for the rescue mission. And TARC, of course, has received funding. And just any number of things. In fact, in the last 15 years, has it been 15 years?
Seems like that's about right.
We've distributed over $60,000 in the community for children's needs. So she would be really pleased.
Yeah. And that's kind of a dream come true for the Community Foundation, to have an umbrella that's broad enough to be able to meet the needs as they come along.
Right. Well, I encourage people not to make it too tight because needs change, society changes, and you just never know. I remember the story that Kansas City Greater Community Foundation started with a big fund that the man left in 1900 to provide water troughs for the horses drawing the wagons or whatever, the streetcars.
Right.
Well, they don't need that anymore. So they were able to, through the doctrine of cypre, which means you can substitute another cause very similar, but that was a pretty tight restriction. Yeah. Not thinking ahead.
And you can't predict what the future will be. Right. Yeah, right. Well, if what we've learned is that if you don't have an estate plan and you pass, the state of Kansas has an estate plan for you. And so, from your perspective, through all these years, why is it important for someone to ensure that they are prepared during their lifetime with an estate plan?
Well, it's important to have some planning, no matter whether it's a estate plan or whether you're going to, the store tonight. I mean, you need to have a little planning in your life. Most people have a plan already in place. They have family. And typically, in the early years of my practice, it was if you had 3 kids, everything went 3 equal shares. When both husband and wife were gone, that was it. So the important part of a plan in any respect is who's going to do the work.
Okay.
And without a will or a trust designating the trustee or the executor who's going to be responsible for taking care of the estate, that creates some problems right off. Then we got into later years where we had families that were his, hers, and ours, with regard to the children. And so that really creates some planning issues, and people don't often realize the problems in the sequence of death between mother and dad as to who inherits under the state laws. So that's very often a reason for doing some planning. Doing a power of attorney so somebody can help you take care of your business if you become incapacitated or you just get tired of doing it, but mainly incapacitation. Medical power of attorney is all part of a plan. But the asset management and direction of who's going to receive assets at death is the major part of estate planning. And since I started in 1976, we've seen the rise of the qualified accounts, which are IRAs, 401ks, which typically do not and should not go through an estate in order to get to the beneficiaries. You create a taxation event that you really don't need to create. So that requires another level of planning around 401ks. I know some people clients that I've worked with in the last 20 years, really their retirement plan was their most significant asset. Maybe their home and their retirement plan, other investments and life insurance, but so forth. So, and in the situations with a charitable intent, I like to bring in the IRA as the most likely asset to designate for charities, because the community foundation doesn't pay income tax on the IRA when you get it, but family members all are going to have to pay income tax sooner or later. Spouse can delay it, but children have to pay income tax when they take it out. So I remind people, okay, if you have an IRA and you're thinking, oh, I want to leave that to my kids, I don't think I want to leave it, you have to remember the tax on that, it's you and the IRS together are leaving it to the community foundation, because your kids are only going to get maybe 60% of it after tax. And so that's an eye-opener for some people when they think about the taxation, the tax savings, and leaving other assets to family and the IRA to community foundation. As you know, that's what I personally have done.
That's right.
And designated the community foundation as the recipient on IRA.
Right.
So if there's anything left. If I live to be 104, Marcia, you're out of luck.
And I hope that you do. Before we got to talking about the community foundation, let's talk about you for a little. Born in Kansas.
I was born in Topeka, Kansas, at what was then Christ Hospital, which is now the old building in the center of Stormont Vale. If you look down from the roof, there's a tile roof on that old building. But I grew up in Ottawa, and went to Ottawa University, and then I went to Japan for a year to teach English after college, and then I came back and went to law school at American University, Washington College of Law in Washington, D.C. And my claim to fame is that Richard Nixon and I left Washington the same week, both unemployed at the time. But Washington was an interesting experience for me. I worked in just a part-time job, nothing fancy, for Senator Pearson at the United States Senate. And that was a good experience. I worked right up there at the Capitol building. And so when I see all that on television, I know about it. But I was happy to get back to Kansas. I didn't want the traffic.
And so you came back to Topeka?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And started
with the law firm.
Yeah. Okay. And it's been home ever since?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So what has been, do you think, your secret sauce to working with clients around estate planning? Because the Community Foundation, we work with other estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, but over the course of the years, by far, clients that have come from you have outnumbered clients from other people.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it seems like, did they bring it up to you? Is it something a conversation that you introduced to them?
I typically would mention, is there any charitable intent in any part of your planning? Just that way.
Right.
I'm not pushing it. I think that maybe one of the aspects of my interaction with clients was I always, after a little chit chat at the beginning, I would say, now tell me why you think what we need to talk about.
Oh.
And let them talk. And I know a lot of attorneys like to do all the talking. And this is what you need. I've seen estate plans that were put together by the attorney, and I know the attorney didn't listen to the client at all because it didn't match. They came to me later and said, what does this say? And I said, tell them what it says. That's not what we intended at all. So you really have to let the client talk to you. I've had one case that I can remember in 50 years where the client said they had no children. Her husband had passed away, and she said, I want to leave all of my estate, which was pretty good size, to charity, and you just write it up and put in whatever you want. And so I said, okay, well, we'll leave it all to the Metropolitan Opera. And she said, well, we don't want to do that. So I said, well, you tell me what you want to do. And she came back with, it was medical need, is what she stressed. People needing assistance with medical expenses and all that sort of thing. So people always have something in mind.
Right.
And I find that invariably the organization or the cause that they want to support, whether it's a community foundation or directly to a charitable organization, is what they've been active with. They don't just dream something out of the blue at the last minute. It's been something that they've really been involved with for many, many years.
Do you see a trend? Most recently, we sat in the Community Foundation's boardroom with a family, the patriarch of the family and his daughters, and talked about the plan. Do you see a trend where families are more open and have these kinds of conversations?
I think so. I think that the generation who are in their 80s and 90s now have finally come to the realization that their children are worth more than they are. And they never dreamed in all the years of working hard and so forth that was going to be the case. Because I think they began to relax in the idea that they could leave more to charity because, Dad, we're okay if you want to leave some of your money to the Community Foundation. We're okay with that because we're financially secure. I think that's a change from the past, where people in the 70s and 80s said, I really need to leave almost everything to my kids,
Right.
And I see families, I prefer it when families have meetings like the family we're talking about. There are other families that we've worked with who have family funds, and they can meet and go over the agreement. They can revise their memorandum once in a while to diversify the terms or the people involved. But I know in that one particular case we're talking about, the children were encouraging their father to do more locally and not so much just to national and international organizations. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to talk about it. But that's also a trend, I think, is to really get back to, okay, what organizations have you been active with here in Topeka?
Right.
And have you been giving? This is one of my themes is, have you been giving to this organization for all these years? Well, when you die, unless you set up something, that cash flow is going to stop, even if it's $1,000 a year. That means a lot to that organization to have that continue through a family fund.
Right.
And not just stop.
Right. Yeah. If there was a new estate planning attorney sitting right here, what advice would you give him or her about working with clients and assisting people with their estate plans?
Well, one thing is to learn about the Community Foundation and other organizations here in town. There's Washburn Foundation, there's Cappers, there's a lot of our local organizations that invariably many of your clients are going to be affiliated with. I mentioned the Symphony. The Symphony has a long-standing fund with the Community Foundation. I happen to have written the agreement, but it's been there a long time.
Right.
And people don't realize that they can endow their gift through that with the Community Foundation. I think the practitioners need to be, young ones coming into it, really need to learn about that part of charitable giving. Where can you leave the money? And how can you set up a fund that does what your clients want to do? And then you kind of educate your clients on it. I know sometimes we've introduced clients to you, Marcia, or to Chandler, or to Roger previously, and said, let's set up a meeting with the Community Foundation and talk about it. I know we have one client, I had one client who was really interested in medical research and didn't know quite how to do that. And so we kind of got a communication for that, which turned out great.
Right. We even took a field trip.
Right, exactly.
Right. Who else, when someone is thinking about, say you're someone at home, you're listening to this, and you don't have a will or a trust, what would be maybe the first one or two steps in moving forward to have some kind of plan?
Okay, well, for one thing, I would not call the people on TV who advertise estate planning packages or trustandwills.com. You can do that. I mean, their information is good for you to read, but when it comes down to actually doing it, I use the example that if I had to have some work done on my car, I certainly would not try to do it myself, even though it would be nice for me to know what's wrong with it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the other example I use is if I have something wrong with my feet, I don't go to an ophthalmologist. I go to a podiatrist or an orthopedic. So not all attorneys are really versed in estate planning beyond just a simple power of attorney and a simple will. And they should admit that, although sometimes it's hard for attorneys to admit they don't know something. But there are ways to, there used to be an estate planning council in Topeka. I don't think it's very active anymore, but the Bar Association, Topeka Bar Association, would certainly give people a list of attorneys who do estate planning work. CPA firms know who does estate planning work. Many of the financial planners, CFPs, are real well acquainted with attorneys who do estate planning because they do planning also.
Right.
Talking with their clients about their assets and their wealth and what's going to happen to it.
Right.
And so that they typically can't do the legal work. So they would know also.
Okay. So those are great starting points.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And the hardest thing is to get started. And I have people say, oh, we've talked about revising our will or whatever for years. And I thought, well, my phone was connected all the time. And it's just a matter of making that call, setting up that first appointment. And I know there were some people in my old office that I retired from just the other day. I was up there and they were meeting with one of the new attorneys. And they said, we are so relieved to finally get this started. I think they had old wills that were like 30 years old. Like anything, you just have to make that call and get that appointment set and get going on it.
Hurst, thank you for your time and for being on our podcast. We appreciate that, and we've appreciated years and years of working together with you.
Well, thank you, Marcia, and I appreciate all the Community Foundation does for our community and wish you all the best in the future.
Great, thank you. For more information on estate planning, you can contact the Topeka Community Foundation or go to our website at www.topekacommunityfoundation.org.